Om Aim Saraswatye Namaha. 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 So that was a Saraswati mantra. And as always, I wish that this talk that I'm recording would be of benefit to all sentient beings. So, there you go. So today I wanted to talk about the meditative mind. I've heard a few people talking about their experiences with their guru or their master, their preceptor, different lineages of different titles, but it's, an advanced practitioner, somebody who has, total commitment to the path and some level of attainment, if not moksha. And you're under their directive, they're telling you what to do. And you're following what they say. They're not bossing you around. They're saying, this practice for this long is how we're going to do it. And you follow. They're kind of leading the way because they're an advanced practitioner, typically with some level of attainment. And I've heard a lot of people, I feel, not a lot, but you consistently hear. When I say not a lot, it's like it's not every single person, but you consistently hear about how, whether it's Swami Satchidananda or Swami Shivananda, Saraswati Maharaj, or Sri Swami Vishnudevananda, or Xuanhua. Sure, I could think of others if I really put my mind to it, but you hear about masters like this from their disciples, and they'll often say, the real teaching wasn't like what they were literally saying or what they were literally telling us to do. It was their being, it was their character. You watch the mannerisms and the movements and the way they attempt to live their life, the way they set out to do something. That's the real teaching, is being around somebody being in the company of the wise. And time again, I kind of hear a very similar takeaway, which is, Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo, I think her name is. She kind of talks about this as well, I think. A lot of, disciples and advanced practitioners and such talk about this, the meditative mind, how the work you do when you're meditating and chanting and doing formal ceremonies like pujas, the work you're doing there and the work you're doing in the rest of your life is not different. It's all a meditative practice. It's all reflection. It's all contemplative. At no point in your day, if you're a serious practitioner who's trying to attain samadhi and moksha, enlightenment in this life, that's really something you are keen on. Like you're not like, oh, maybe one day that could happen for me in a future birth. You're like, no, like this lifetime, I'm going to do the work now, and that can produce results. For somebody of that inclination, you can see, and a lot of disciples talk about their master interacting with them and kind of imparting this lesson from different religions and lineages. But what you're really cultivating is the meditative mind. So it's a mind that can sit there and meditate, and it's a mind that can be doing anything and be in a state of quiescence and observation and purification. You can meditate for some time and then go cook a meal, and cooking the meal becomes very mindful. Or you can have a conversation and you're applying your virtues, or you're constructing something and you're kind of in a flow going through the sequences. It's like you look for the ways to keep your mind in that quiescent, collected state. And after a certain point, it becomes kind of effortless. You just kind of go through life where everything becomes kind of a flow and a way to work with the mind and observe the mind. And so what happens on and off the cushion are non-different in that it's all practice. At no point are you not working. You're never off duty. You're never like, oh, I did enough meditation today, let me go pop a beer. It's, and relax and do something different. The whole time you're taking what you're doing, whether it's sitting there and watching the breath, doing a mantra, or a different style of meditation, or you're having a conversation, or you're walking the dog, or you're reading a book, or you're at work or at home doing your normal tasks. You find some way to be mindful, to be watching the mind, to be working with the mind at all times. So everything you're doing is a kind of meditation. Sometimes you're doing a formal meditation. Sometimes you're doing a walking down the street meditation. Sometimes you're doing a cutting a cucumber meditation. Sometimes you're doing, reading a book meditation. But the whole point, you don't think of things as like a time for practice and wasted time. There's you see everything as an opportunity to work with the mind. I think that's the real takeaway. And yes, formal seated meditation and living life are different. They're not the same experience. When I sit there and meditate for an hour and then go do chores for a few hours, it feels different. I'm not like, well, that's the exact same thing. I can't say they're the exact same thing because they're different. But you can find ways to see how the way you apply your mind and the way you work with your mind are not different. In meditation, you're putting in a slight effort to be with the breath or maintain the mantra to stabilize the mind such that it can become quiescent. And then when you're not meditating, you can find ways to work with the situation. There are different mindfulness techniques. You can be doing a mantra. You can stay with the breath. You can bring awareness to the body, and if you're standing, be standing. If you're walking, be walking. If you're sitting, be sitting. You can be aware of the position of your body at that moment. If it's a repetitive task, you can kind of just go in a flow state. It's like if you work, let's say, at a factory on an assembly line, and it's your job to um, move things from one conveyor belt to the other. Just, like you put it here and then you put it there, and you put it here and you put it there. Like, you don't need a whole lot of analytical brain power for that. You're just moving, kind of like a robot. It's like you can pretty much stop thinking, so it's like there's, like repetitive tasks are great for that, or things that are a little dynamic, but you've done them, like brushing your teeth. Like, I don't need to think that much when I'm brushing my teeth. I often do, and then I try to quiet the mind, but I don't need to be thinking during that time, because I brush my teeth, twice a day, and I've done that every day for most of my life, and so I've brushed my teeth pretty much every day throughout my life, at least once, and so it's something you're pretty familiar with, and you don't need to think about it too much. So basically, essentially, really, the significance for most people who are thinking about applying this is there's formal meditation, and then there's ways to be mindful outside of meditation. So there are ways you can discipline the mind, or do something kind of methodically, such that you're not really creating too many thought waves and disturbing the mind, but you can actually kind of keep this nice, quiet, focused, settled mind intact. Like, for instance, it's pretty hard to walk with your eyes closed and not bump into things. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of keep my eyes focused and just let my, like, straight forward, and I'll just kind of let my eyes rest in their sockets so they're not, like, strained. And I'll just walk at a normal pace and just keep my head down, looking like 3 to 5 feet in front of me. And this way it's almost as if I had my eyes closed, but I'm not going to bump into something, or somebody's going to walk into me. So you're aware of your surroundings, but just your immediate periphery. Your head's kind of downcast at the floor, and you just have like an immediate peripheral awareness. And this way you don't have to be like, it's as if your eyes were closed while you're walking, although you're not going to cause anyone any harm, yourself or someone else. So there's just little ways you can kind of minimize the way you do something, can actually allow for minimal mental turbulence, activity. And as time goes by, if you're serious about meditation and going towards the ultimate goal of life, which is liberation, nirvana, moksha, sixth density. There's a lot of different terms for it. If that's your aim, then you can do formal meditation and then work with your mind in your daily life to avoid unnecessary activity and disturbances. You can do a mantra. You can find a job that's quiet. For me, I eat once a day. I don't need to think about, I eat a sizable meal. I eat 2 quarts of food. I eat everything I eat in the day at once. So I can do all my cooking and all my cleaning once, not 3 times. And I don't need to snack, and I don't need to think about food. I'm meditating, but when I finish this, I'm going to go eat a meal and it's going to be tasty. It's like, I don't think about that. It's eat once a day, and the rest of the time, food does not have to weigh on your mind. So you can make lifestyle choices. There are spiritual practices, mindfulness practices, time management practices that you can implement, perspectives you can implement. You can be watching the mind to see what's arising and what corresponding virtues and kleshas, that's impurities, that's corresponding to, and go, I think the reason I'm feeling this way, which is disturbing my peace of mind, is caused by jealousy or laziness or doubt or anger or aversion or attraction. So you can work with the mind all the time. It's not like you're meditating and then you get up after your meditation and all the work ends. It's like you can be continuing the work in various forms using your own personal guile, your own intelligence to figure out ways of structuring your life, of doing things in the moment, of ways you work with your attention, of ways you observe the mind, so that you've quieted the mind in meditation, and then you take this mind that's easy to work with because you quieted it during formal meditation, and you continue to cultivate it throughout the day. And I think that's the real point, is if you're someone who meditates and you're someone who's serious about enlightenment, you're a real spiritual seeker, you can turn your whole life into a contemplation of the mind, of the nature of the mind. You can be finding out about what is the nature of mind every second of the day. You can be digging deeper and getting closer to the truth. You can be doing self-inquiry. You can be watching your breath and stuff like that. I mean, you can be doing japa, doing a mantra. I mean, there's so many ways to stay in that space and keep the work going so that you don't need to stop making some degree of progress towards enlightenment ever. And I've heard people say this again and again, and it seems like a real theme from people who've actually spent years, often decade plus with the master, and they'll say, my real lesson is it doesn't stop. There's no meditating and then not meditating. There's formal meditation, and then you just continue to work with the mind in various ways outside of it. And in Raja Yoga, in the Raja Yoga system, which is elucidated in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, sage Patanjali Maharishi, 1200 years ago, he was alive in Chidambaram in South India. He compiled the Yoga Sutras, which is a great text worth reading, a translation with a commentary. Sri Swami Satchidananda has a good commentary. In his book, Meditation and Mantras, Sri Swami Vishnudevananda has a translation. You look online, there's tons of translations. Swami Venkateshananda, my friend Nataraj told me he has a good translation. Jagannath Carrera has a translation. Trevor Leggett, Leggett, I think. Trevor Leggett. Swami recommended his translation of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras to me. But I mean, what one of the things I feel I've taken away from studying the Yoga Sutras, to the light extent that I have, is it's all a projection of your mind. There's stuff happening, there's phenomena outside, and then there's pure consciousness. And in between pure consciousness, the luminosity of the mind that can allow for consciousness, the nature of consciousness, awareness, and the movement of names and forms, something in between there is there's this self, this ego, this story being woven and stored about, everything that happens, all these memories, how this relates to me, who I think of myself as being. But really, that's just a construct. It's not. There's no you. You know what I mean? Like, there's no you. Like, if like I can change my name. I can legally change my name. There's nothing about me that, my name is Daniel Brown, but there's nothing about me that's inherently Daniel Brown. I could legally change that, and then I'd have a new name, you know? And I'm 6'4", but I could get, in a machinery accident, my legs could get chopped off, and then I'm in a wheelchair, and now I'm like 4 foot something. So it's like all these things that I think about myself as being are impermanent. They can change, and yet the essence of me would still be there. The thing that allows for Daniel Brown, who's 6'4", yada yada yada, does this for a living, lives here, this race, this gender. All those things can change without the fact that the thing that was aware of Daniel Brown being, the essence of that still allows for Daniel Brown to change. Does that make sense? Like, I could change my name, my height could change, my health could change, all these things could change, and yet the thing that was aware of Daniel Brown in that previous state is now aware of Daniel Brown in this new state. So what Daniel Brown is constantly changing, but there's something that is aware of it, and its awareness of, insert here, XYZ, the awareness of doesn't change. There's this quality of consciousness that doesn't change, and all the changes of life, all the pairs of opposites, all the gunas, all the impermanence of life taking place in front of your source base awareness, all that stuff changes, and yet the fact that you have the faculty to be aware of it doesn't change at all. That's never changed slightly, ever. And so basically, my understanding is, Patanjali says the seen exists for the sake of the seer. That might not be the literal translation of it, but it's something to that effect. The seen exists for the sake of the seer. So basically, there's stuff happening, and there's your ability to be aware of. Insert here, XYZ. There's your ability to be aware of, which never changes, and then there's all these things changing, and we attach value to them. We write stories about them in our mind. We say, that happened because, it's all stuff happening, and we know it happened because we didn't not experience it. There's something about us that allows for experience to take place. And there's stuff in front of that ability that allows for things to take place in a witness in a capacity such that they are witnessed. There's something that allows for things to happen in front of that innate faculty in us, where they are observed, and the things that are observed are changing. So changes happen, and how do we know they happen? Because we know. Period. We have the innate ability to know. And what do we know about? We know about things in front of us changing. But it's just stuff. Vishaya is the Sanskrit term. It's phenomena. It's just stuff happening. It has nothing to do with you. And every time we take things personally, we think, well, this happened to me because that, or this indicates that. It's a construct. It's not actually there. It's just awareness and stuff happening. And so basically, when you're meditating, you're quieting the mind and getting more in touch with that base awareness of. But then when you're out about in life, all the vrittis, the thought waves, begin to generate and proliferate and promulgate. And now your mind is in a state of proliferation. It's dissipating. The amount of concentration and collected mental energy you were able to cull during meditation is now being kind of released in a scattered fashion. Your mind became very one pointed, and now it's all over the place. Because you were meditating, and then you stopped meditating and went about living your normal life. That has to happen. You have to eat. You have to use the bathroom. You can't meditate continuously forever. There are things that have to happen. You have to sleep. At the barest conceivable minimum, you have to eat and sleep and use the bathroom. So your meditation couldn't be continuous forever unless you were at some very advanced stage where bodily functions didn't really happen for you the way they happen for most. So in meditation, you're quieting the mind and getting in touch with that aware, innate knowing, the innate ability to know, the innate ability to know of. But then when you're out about in the world, then you're aware of stuff happening. And what happens is your innate ability to know of becomes fractalized and scattered and weakened by the fact that it's being scattered. And it becomes scattered because now there's stuff happening. You're not just aware of your own knowing. You're not just knowing your knowing or aware of your awareness like you are in formal meditation. Now you're aware of, that tree over there. There's a candle. There's a computer in front of me. There's cars moving about. I have to charge my computer. I have to go to bed soon. All these things. It's like now you're aware of all this stuff. And now your mind is not as strong or concentrated or whatever verbiage you want to use as it was, when I was meditating a few minutes ago. I was meditating for roughly an hour. And now that I'm recording a video and, I'm looking outside my window and there are trees there, there are pictures in my room. It's like my mind is in a very different state than when I was meditating. So you go from this state of one-pointed awareness to this state of being aware of things. And often these things are moving and alive and things are happening. And so the dynamic nature of the external world causes our mind to stir. And when our mind is stirring, it's taking pure awareness and the fact that things are happening and tying them together in a narrative. But that narrative is not necessarily accurate, it's not necessarily consistent, and therefore it's not necessarily true. If most of how we're making sense of things is an assumption based on a relative perception, it's not necessarily objective fact. It's relative. It's subjective rather than. It's semantics rather than objective truth, really. Like there's the classic example in Vedanta of the snake and the rope. There's a man walking around either at sunrise or sunset, so you can see but not that well. And he sees a coiled rope on the road, but he doesn't know it's a rope. He sees a snake, a form of a snake, and he freaks out and he calls the villagers around, and then somebody starts laughing and they go, brother, you told us there was a snake here, but when you hold the light up to it, it's just a rope. And a coiled rope can look like the form of a snake. So you look at something that looks like a rope and a snake, and your mind, but it's not been confirmed. We don't know whether it is a rope or a snake because we haven't investigated it closely enough. We haven't shed light on the subject. And so it can be a rope or it could be a snake, and so your mind picks whichever it feels is more relevant. However, it's not really verified, right? And so the point here is it's everything we do is like that. We look at something that's happening and we try to make sense of it as best we're able. But that's all we're doing. We're making sense of it as best we're able. It's not necessarily true. The only thing that's true is something happened and you were aware of it. And how you make sense of that in your own mind is completely subjective. It's all semantics. And so when you're meditating in a formal practice that's very powerful, it's very beneficial. I obviously recommend everyone give meditation a try. Why is it beneficial? Because it allows you to quiet and recollect the mind such that it's not disturbed by like constant thought waves. Vrittis in Sanskrit is what they're called. Fluctuations of the mind, mental content, vrittis, thought waves. And it's becoming quiescent. It's settling down and becoming one-pointed or single-pointed. Concentrated, focused is also another term for that. But then when you're out and about, you don't need to end that work with the mind. This is really the point I'm trying to make, is you have innate awareness of, and then there's stuff happening. And what happens in between is all semantics. It's all unverified narratives. And so you can observe these narratives as they arise and work with them. They're not right, they're not wrong. It's just something to dig deeper with. He looked at me that way. She said this. This seems like it's going to happen. Okay. Why? Why is that what I thought? Was that guy angry at me? Or, does he need to be using the bathroom right now and he doesn't know where the nearest restroom is? Was that face like, oh my God, I hate Daniel Brown's guts? Or was that, oh my God, I need to find a restroom right now? Why was he looking at me like that? Or you're trying to sleep and there's a bird outside chirping, and it's like, why can't this bird let me sleep? It's like the bird has no idea you exist. It's just doing it's a bird. It chirps. It's just chirping because it's a bird. It's not even aware of you in your room. So is it chirping to wake you up and tick you off? No, because it doesn't have that level of awareness in this moment. And it's not your fault that you're thinking that. It's not the fault of the bird for doing what it's doing. It's all just stuff happening, and it's not personal. That's the case. That's the fact. But just going, oh, I take everything personally and I shouldn't, doesn't help you. But what you can do is look at the way that you take things personally. Look at the way that you tie your innate knowing of and the fact that phenomena occurs. You live in a relative phenomenological reality. You live in a reality where things are relative, and so you have a subjective view of things occurring in your field of awareness. In your field of awareness, there are changes. There's objects changing, impermanence. It's all in motion. It's all changing. It all has a beginning and an end. And the way you tie that together, the way you take it from just raw data and make it into something your mind can navigate, is by creating a story about it. And that story could be true, it could not be true. It just depends. It's kind of besides the point. The point is you're a person who's cultivating a meditative mind at all times, and through various techniques and in various degrees, you're making your whole life about focus and reflection. And so you can look at your field of awareness and what's in your field of awareness and how you've tied those together and how that can lead towards liberation or cause further suffering. If I look at someone and I feel myself losing a state of complete serenity and complete peace of mind because of the way I relate to them, I can question, well, why am I relating to them in this way? I think they're more attractive than I am. I think they're richer than I am. I think they're better at the things that I'm interested in than I am. I like to paint. I like to meditate. They're a better painter. They're a better meditator than I am. They seem more well off than I do. They're more attractive than I am. Whatever. That just disturbed your mind. You have a field of awareness and you have things you're aware of, and the way you tied that together caused your mind to be dissatisfied, to begin to seek. That happens to everyone. There's nothing really wrong with that, but that's it's not going to help you get enlightened, but you're not like stupid or like, oh, I did it wrong. It's just what happened. That's the conclusion your mind arrived at. And so that's an opportunity where you can dig deeper and go, well, why did I relate to it that way? So you can look at the nature of the way your mind weaves these narratives and question it. You can interrupt it, you can probe deeper into it, you can challenge it. You can go, okay, mind, why did you take the storyline there? And so you can be doing these practices to maintain mental quiescence. You can be staying with the breath. You can be doing japa. You can be trying to do one thing at a time. You could be doing self-inquiry. There are many things you can do to kind of penetrate through the flood of thought waves in your mind and actually get at the real nature of your mind and have some kind of awakening. Or you can just let your mind kind of run normally, but just witness it. You're not reacting to it like, I think that person was rude to me. I'm going to say something rude back to them. You just look at it and go, okay, that's what I think. I think they said something rude to me. They said something. I heard them say something, and I chose to think, oh, that's rude. But rather than following up on that, I'll go, well, why did my mind take what happened and interpret it that way? Where was that coming from? And so you can question why the content that arises in your mind is the content that arose. Where is my mind at? Where are the samskaras and vasanas, the factors that contribute to the way your mind would lead the narrative one way or the other? Why did it lead me there? Why did it lead me here? So on and so forth. So you can kind of, maybe you look at someone and instead of having total serenity, you go, oh, he's got something I want, or she's got something I wish I had. That's jealousy. Maybe you're thinking about your meditation practice and you're like, I like meditating, but maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe I shouldn't do it so much. I don't know if the books I'm reading are right. That disturbed your peace of mind. That's doubt, maybe something inconvenient happened for you and you get very upset and it's really becoming a bigger and bigger problem in your mind. That's anger, right? Maybe there's something that you have to do. Like maybe you're meditating and you want to relax and do some pranayama afterwards, but you said you'd make a YouTube video. And so you go, oh, I don't want to do that. That's laziness. That's frustration. That's aversion. So you can kind of look at your mind, and rather than reacting to the story your mind is presenting to you, or judging your mind as being, a good mind or a bad mind, you can just look at it as it is, look at the type of content that it's allowing to arise within itself, and go, well, what kind of impurity, what kind of defilement, what kind of hindrance, what kind of klesha would cause that? Was that caused by fear of death? Was that caused by desire and lust? You can kind of figure out the corresponding cause that thing that disturbed your mental quiescence was in response to. So you can just kind of let the mind run and just observe it. And when you find something is kind of disturbing your mental peace and you can't immediately work past it, you can go, okay, well, where did this come from? What is this really a response to? And this way you can kind of penetrate into the factors that contribute to why your mind works the way that it does and kind of clean all that business up a little bit, by watching the mind and challenging it and probing deeper into it rather than just running with the story it's giving you and reacting to that. You can just sit there and observe your mind and see the things that allow you to be calm, and then the things that make you lose your cool, even slightly. You can just question them. Okay, well, that made me lose my cool. Why? Was that jealousy? Was that doubt? Was that greed that caused this thing that is now weighing on my mind? So that's the point I'm trying to make, is your whole experience of life is in your mind. There's stuff happening outside of you, but your experience of how you relate to what's happening outside of you is in your mind. It's all in your mind. So Is the whole world in your mind physically? No. But is your entire reality, is your entire experience of what's happening to you in your mind? Absolutely. Is my sense of touch in my finger or is it in my brain? It's like I have nerves in my finger, but I actually touch things in my brain. Like my finger's nerve endings came in contact right here, but I actually felt something in my brain. So it's like something happened out there, but my reaction happened in my mind, right? So you can take formal meditation is very beneficial, but then you can take everything that happens outside of it and use that as a means to reflect. Well, this is what how my mind responded to this, or this is how my mind responded to that, and then correlate that with a impeding cause that you can then observe and note. Okay, when I feel this way, it's caused by jealousy. So now I know. Next time I feel that way, I won't let the whole mood overcome me. I'll just go, oh, I think I'm feeling jealousy again. You know? And then you can just kind of navigate that situation with peace of mind. You go, okay, yeah, I mean, of course I'm feeling this way. That's jealousy. This is jealousy I'm feeling. This is what jealousy feels like. It's just here. Soon it won't be. Okay. I know what I'm dealing with. It's not catching me off guard. I know exactly what's happening to me. And so you're a little more in control of it. You're aware that, it's not that this person is so cool and that's upsetting. It's that, oh, there's jealousy in the mind. Okay, of course it's going to feel like this. That's okay. I can coexist with this until it passes because I know I've identified it. So I think I'm going to wrap it up. It's time for me to go to bed. But in conclusion, formal meditation is very beneficial, but the benefit of meditation doesn't need to end the second your formal meditation practice ends. You can be cultivating the meditative mind at all times. You can be making progress towards enlightenment at all times. And there are many ways you can do that. You can keep a mantra. You can do many myriad of mindfulness practices. You can be doing self-inquiry. You can be observing the mind and just watching the stories and the content and the narratives that are arising within it. And rather than reacting to them, just try to understand them better, understand what virtues influence that, what kleshas, what mental defilements may have caused you to interpret things that way, to use your innate ability to know of, to relate to phenomena, external objects occurring. How come you related to them in that way? And so at no moment in your day do you have to give up on discovering of the nature of mind by working with the mind. There are many ways to do that. That's really the point. And I've heard again and again direct disciples of very advanced practitioners, gurus, lineage holders, whatever. They'll say of their time with their teacher, their master, the real takeaway I had is there's no beginning and end to meditation. It's all your mind is always there, and you can always choose to work with it. You can choose to work with it through formal meditation. You can choose to work with it through keeping a contemplative approach to the mind at all times, through self-inquiry and watching the mind, or having a mantra, or mindfulness practices, whatever. But that's the real takeaway, is the mind is always there, and your ability to challenge its constant proliferation and constant semantics through very simple but constantly applied practices allow you to kind of quell your mind's reactivity and scattered nature. So the work never has to stop. You can be benefiting from and enjoying peace of mind and making progress towards enlightenment and having a mind that is more under control than not all the time. At no point does it need to stop. And a lot of people who've put in a lot of work with a real master often have that takeaway. So that's my 2 cents on that aspect of the path. That you can, the mind is always there, and so you can always be working with it. And there are many ways to work with it. And when you're meditating formally or not, you can still be working with the mind and having a contemplative, reflective approach to what you're witnessing rather than just reacting to it. That's it. Om Namah Shivaya. I wish you well. I love you. I hope you got something out of this. Good night.